How are you?
Very well.
So where are you based?
Well, that's actually a hard question to answer. I'm notionally based in New York, though I guess I spent over 7 months on the road.
We don't know. That was my point.
Yeah.
So first, I have to say that I'm really ashamed of my accent. Are you really French?
I actually am French. I was born in Paris. I grew up in Nice. I got it back in Lycée Masséna in Nice, but left, I guess, 18 years ago and decided I needed to learn to speak English perfectly. So I worked really hard at it. It happened.
Yeah, well, but when we talk together, like, it's really, really tough. But anyway, so tell me what you do, Fabrice, so that the room...
Sure. So, I mean, I've been doing entrepreneurship. I've been running startups for the last 11 years or so. I used to work for McKinsey & Company, and then about 10 years ago, I was like, you know what, 1998, right time, right place, right skills. It's time to do something on the internet. I mean, the issue is, didn't have any brilliant new ideas to bring to the world. So if you want to do something on the internet and you don't know what to do, I've decided, you know what, I'm going to steal other people's brilliant ideas. So I guess I'm a professional thief. That's really the answer. If you have a good idea, don't give it to me, because I might steal the idea and execute on it. And so my first company was a copy of eBay for Southern Europe. It was called Auckland.
Wait.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, like, there aren't that many people like openly saying, yeah, well, you know, I created a company, I just copied something.
Well, some people are creative guys, and I'm not. I think Picasso once said, smart people plagiarize, but geniuses plunder and steal. And, you know, Picasso and Matisse were stealing from each other. I'm like, I could do that too.
All right. So, okay, so you copied eBay.
So I copied eBay, created a copy of eBay for Southern Europe. It was called Auckland. It was pretty big in France. And then ultimately didn't do all that well when the bubble crashed or burst, sold it, made nothing. And 2001, started looking for what to do next and realized, you know what, there are good ideas in Europe that I could take to the rest of the world. And saw that ringtones and...
But there was a controversy, right, when you left France. What was it about? I don't remember.
I mean, the majority of shareholders and I had disagreements in terms of what we should do with the company, who we should sell it to, and you know, we disagreed, which is ultimately why I left. And the company was sold to a publicly traded auction site in the UK at the time called QXL.
Okay.
And
where you left the company or where you left France?
Oh no, I just left. Wow. Where I go is really driven by opportunity and opportunism. You know, if I have an idea, I'll go where the idea is. It just so happened the next idea I chose was to steal ringtones from Europe, bring that to the US. So obviously, given that I was choosing to go to the US, I went to the US. Now, if you want to talk about why, you know, differences of running a business in France and the US.
Sure.
Well, what's interesting is, you know, Auckland, I came to France to do Auckland because that's where there was a need. There was no eBay in France at the time. And you can't imagine how tough it was not to build a business. That was tough in its own right. But actually to deal with all the other things. I mean, France, in its infinite wisdom, decided that to run auctions, you needed a government auctioneer. And if you were not a licensed government auctioneer, you might be illegal. And it was not clear if we were illegal or not, but you know, we had to go and meet all the ministers, and I think eventually the European government was sued at the European Commission to get the law overturned. Separately, I had not done my military service, you know, France's military service. They decided, hey, this guy, you know, maybe he should go and do his military service. But we had 120 employees, you know, we were doing millions in monthly volumes of sales. And instead, they were trying to send me, they were sending inspectors to the office to arrest me and send me to do military service. Then the French government...
Seriously? Like they were really going after you?
They went to my grandmother's, they went to the office, they tried to like send me to report and do military service.
You know, we have a French minister of the internet coming in a few minutes.
Well, I actually hear things are a lot better now.
Okay, well, otherwise, you know, we can have you on stage and ask directly Nathalie Kosciusko-Morizet.
I mean, the 35-hour work week was passed at that same time, so we started to implement that. We couldn't fire anyone, including people who were completely incompetent. They were showing up like drunk at the office. I mean, and last but not least,
you know, a comment like that, just that. Now that I'm in between, like I think, you know, like a little bit in the middle of the ocean, kind of. You see what I mean? I really feel European, but I live in the US, but. A comment like you've made, which is, it was very difficult to fire people. Like in the US, yeah, you said that. Here, you know, I would like to see the Twitter stream. That's not something you say easily, but.
Yeah, but the reality is, when you hire someone, there's an art part of it, and there's a science part of it. The science is you check references, you interview them, et cetera. But sometimes it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work and you want to get rid of them, it's really hard in France. And so, that on top of everything else that we try to do, it was so painful to be running a company here. Even though the opportunity was here and I loved this country and I loved being here, and then try to explain to the VC, getting VCs at the time at least to understand what the market for an auction site could be, how valuable it could be, what exits could be, it's just harder.
So you gave up. You're like, that's it. I'm leaving my own country.
I didn't, no, well, as I said, I didn't leave for these reasons. I just think it makes entrepreneurship harder. I left because I saw a great opportunity to build.
So let's talk about the new opportunity.
Well, so the next opportunity, which was not the new one, but the next opportunity was take ringtones from Europe, bring it to the US. And imagine going to venture capitalists in 2001 and telling them, I'm going to do direct-to-consumer telecom. I don't think the sentence, I finished the sentence, they already hung up. So the first few years were really tough. But, people didn't want to believe it would work in the US. And I'd like to believe my entire life has shown that an idea that works in one country typically works in another country. I mean, we humans are actually rather simple-minded creatures. We want to be entertained. We want to communicate. We want to find a semblance of meaning in our lives. And to the extent that a product or service or a company does that in one country, it'll most likely work in the others. So what I did is created a company called Zingy. And the first 2 years were tough. I mean, invested everything I had. We missed payroll. I almost went bankrupt. I missed my rent payments.
Yeah, you were not rich yet, right?
I made essentially no money in the first deal. So I was poor and getting poorer by the minute. But the company really took off. I mean, in 2002, we did $1 million in sales. 2003, we did $5 million.
How much did you invest at the beginning?
I guess everything I had, I invested $700,000, plus we raised...
everything you had?
Everything, 100%, plus I borrowed my credit card, so it was even worse than that. And
so you leave your country, you go to the US, you put everything you have in a business. Well, it better work, huh?
It didn't happen that way, though. I put 50K, and then, we need to pay payroll, another 50K. Yeah. Before you know it, no more money. And then eventually, so I was always coming up with ideas, or excuses to the employees.
And I guess based on your past experience with investors, you really tried hard to not have investors?
Yeah, actually, I like venture capitalists, and they play a very important role. It's just in that case, no investor wanted to invest in me or in the company. And so it's not that I didn't want to have investors. I was desperate for money. I just couldn't get it. And so grew the company.
They all said no.
They all said no.
Yeah, no, I remember you really crossed the desert at that time.
I mean, but in 2001.
And I have to say the French media, if there are any French media here, were especially tough. Yeah. And I'm really happy that you crossed the... So let's talk about the other side now.
Okay, so, but then, there was, I guess, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, the light.
And it was not an incoming train. So sales of the company went from 1 million in 02 to 5 million in 03 to 50 million in 04 to 200 million in 05. So 1 million in sales to 200 million in sales in 4 years with no funding. It was crazy. I mean, it was a rocket ship. And
how did you do that? Like, can you teach me?
I wish it was easy to replicate. I mean, really, we kind of got lucky. I mean, we got lucky. We had signed all the carriers before the business took off. So the minute the business took off...
So this was what, ringtones?
Ringtones.
Ringtones.
We were not selling them directly. The carriers were selling them. They were doing the marketing on our behalf, essentially.
$200 million in 2 years?
In 4 years.
4 years. Wow.
I sold the company.
How much?
80 million in cash. And I had the majority of it, so life was pretty good.
80 million in cash?
In May of 04. And,
so you started feeling better?
It took me a while to realize, like I didn't need to worry too much anymore. But yeah, I felt more comfortable. I could sleep a little bit better at night.
Yeah? What did you do? Did you do anything crazy?
But the thing is, when we sold, the growth was, so rapid. We were too busy hiring people, doing more deals, et cetera. I didn't really do anything crazy. I got... I rented a big house, which I made into a big playground. Put a paintball field and got plasma TVs and Xboxes, but nothing crazy.
Nothing fancy.
Yeah.
All right. Your own paintball game in your backyard. That's kind of interesting. So new business, another one. Wait, you have 80 million. You sell for $80 million. Why would you need another business? Just go play golf or something.
I mean, it depends what you want to do in life, right? And I never created companies in order to make money. I created companies because I like creating something out of nothing. I like the process of entrepreneurship. I like, not only creating service that starts being used by people, but also influencing, helping the lives of my employees. And frankly, I just love the product. I love playing with the product, designing the feature set, et cetera. And so I couldn't see myself being an investor, and I couldn't see myself just
Why not? I mean,
nothing.
you could, like, with that amount of money in your hands, you could start, investing in, you could actually start investing in all the companies in the room.
Well, I've actually done that. I've invested.
Oh, you're also a business angel.
I've invested in 33 companies. And in 2009, I invested in 8 or 9 companies. But that's what I do at night, for fun on the side.
Okay. So what's the new thing?
So the new thing, I guess, continuing the trend of being inspired by other people's brilliant ideas. And in 2006, early 2006, I realized, I really love Craigslist. I'm a user of Craigslist. I think the product is fantastic.
Don't tell me you started by, let's copy Craigslist.
Exactly. Copied Craigslist. So 2 reasons. First, I thought the product could be improved. And 2, there were a lot of countries in the world where classifieds or free classifieds was not available. And if you're in Brazil and your only opportunity to put an ad is to pay $200 in a newspaper, you might do that for a job or for an apartment, but you're not going to find a roommate that way. You're not going to find a babysitter that way. You're not going to sell your couch that way. And I felt, there was really big unmet need. And so in 2006, I created a company called OLX. So I had 3 letters. And we launched in June of 2006. So we've been doing this for 3.5 years. And we're probably...
So it's Craigslist in how many countries?
90 countries, 40 languages.
And you don't mind about saying, hey, I copied Craigslist? No.
I mean, you know what? I love Craigslist, and the same way I loved eBay. I think, and I love Craig, and I love the philosophy of providing a public service to the community. And we felt we could do the same thing in many places where there was a big unmet need, and doing it in a local way. And so,
so how is it going?
So we're pretty well. I mean, we're probably the largest classified site in the world, or actually, we're the largest probably internet site in the world that no one's ever heard of. I mean,
OLX, I guess.
We
now you have a few
give you a sense of scale. We have over 100 million unique visitors a month if you add all of our properties globally together. I mean, that's more reach or more unique visitors than Twitter or MySpace, just to give you a sense of scale. I mean, so besides not page views, but unique visitors.
So how come you don't like to, you don't like to talk at events, or how come not many more people know about
because we're invisible, because we're not in the U.S. We're not big in the U.S. We're not big in Western Europe. They're local incumbents.
So the Americans don't care that much?
Nah,
because you're like international.
I mean, if you're big in, we're big in like Brazil, Mexico, Russia, India.
So the Europeans don't care
Spain.
Either, because you're in Mexico, Russia, and so you're like everywhere else.
Yeah, we're the developing market. So Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia.
What revenue?
Probably like 10 million run rate right now, and just free Google advertising. Yeah.
Just Google ads?
Pretty much, Google ads.
So you're doing $1 million a month in Google ads?
A bit less, but yeah.
That's
I mean,
cool.
it's not just Google. It's Yandex or Baidu or... And
yeah,
we
but
sell
it's
our own
like
ads.
only, so you don't have a sales team. It's only automated ads.
Yeah, I mean, my sales guy is one guy. He manages the Google relationship. He's also all the guy that does all the media buying. But we have 140 people in the company, don't get me wrong.
I can see, it's Miriam for Google here. It's like, what, $1 million a month in Google ads? Look, she's smiling like, yeah, some people are doing that. Wow, $1 million a month? I like that.
It's less than that, as I said.
So you just sleep, you don't work, and it just sells by itself.
I wish it was that easy.
You found the perfect business.
It's a great business, and you know what's actually better is the users love us. I mean, every day we get letters from someone in Sao Paulo or in Buenos Aires, and they're like, you know what? I needed money to buy something for my kid, and I was able to sell my used couch, and I was able to find money, or I found the apartment of my dream. I mean, users love us. They send us love letters, and I mean, it makes you feel much better about yourself when your users are telling you, you're changing their lives in a meaningful way, and we're doing all that for free. And I mean, our commitment is to do that for free forever.
Oh, cool. And so, how do you look at us, like real-time web, and not making much revenue yet, and us being, for example, the Twitter ecosystem, which...
I mean, it's a different world. I mean, classifieds is not a social business, because if you could sell, your crappy couch to your friends, you probably would have done that already. And so the reason they don't want it, and so they put it in a classified site to sell it to other people. Now that said, there's still an interlink. I mean, we obviously let you, once you put an ad, tell your friends on Facebook, put it on Twitter, send it to them by emails, et cetera. Trying to have a real-time component to our business is a bit tougher for 2 reasons.
No, but wait.
Yeah.
No, I mean, tell me, seriously.
Yeah.
You're like, this is all bullshit, right?
No, no, actually,
How do you say bullshit?
it's
by
useful.
The accent? Bullshit.
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 Look, I think Twitter is extremely useful as a means of getting feedback from your users, as a means of giving news, as a means of, it's a means of getting communication, also as a means of finding new information.
Right, but you don't use Twitter and Facebook.
As a personal, I'm a huge user of both.
Oh,
I have 1,600 friends on Facebook, and OLX uses both. On Twitter, we tweet daily ideas. We just changed the new header. What do you think?
You don't use it for the site. That's what I mean.
We let users use it. So if you have an ad, we tell you, hey, why don't you tell your friends about it on Twitter? So we do use it. But the reality is it's a nice to have. It's not a need to have. It's not the core component. The core component is if you're looking for something, do you find it? And if you're putting an ad, do you get replies? Or there are no scams or spam. That's really core.
Let's see with the many entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs who are in this room right now, what would be your advice? Because that guy went from, we talked about it, right? But zero to an amazing business, mostly entirely automated on Google Ads.
No,
in no time.
140 people. We raised 29 million in venture money.
Oh, okay.
It was really hard. We had to spend a lot of money in marketing. We had to work really hard on the product. We acquired a few sites. It's not that easy.
So if you're sitting in this room right now and you have a few ideas, what's your advice? Where do you start? Where do you start calling Fabrice Grinda to get 100,000 euros? Or
that works. The typical, usually I would tell people, bootstrap your business, spend as little money as possible, get it up and running, and then show it to people. Once you have a site up and running, try to raise a couple hundred thousand for angels.
Don't think too much.
Sorry?
Don't think too much.
Yeah, exactly. The key success factors as an entrepreneur is really grit, tenacity, and passion. Just keep working at it. Our strategy from a product perspective is not.
What do you say? Tenacity, passion,
and grit. Grit. Keep trying. Keep working really hard and executing until something sticks. So we don't actually think through product decisions all that much. We're like, ooh, this seems like a good idea. Throw it on the wall, see if it sticks, and throw enough things on the wall. Eventually, something sticks.
How do you see the future? How do you see the internet? Where do you see the internet going? What's happening for you, in 2010, 2011?
Well, that's near-term future. Broad generalization. What are the major macro trends? Right? Major macro trend is broadband penetration is growing around the world. Mobile penetration and smartphone penetration is growing around the world. And at least right now, their real-time web is growing. So it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to say more and more sites are going to have smartphone versions. More and more of the overall traffic globally is going to go to smartphones. More and more people are going to start paying attention to the social web in general. And more of the traffic is actually coming from most sites from emerging markets. And emerging markets are becoming an increasingly larger or an increasingly relevant share of traffic and users for most sites everywhere around the world.
So mobile.
Well, mobile and global. Frankly, I think when Facebook was started, they probably didn't even think of the rest of the world, but by the virtue of being a social site like Twitter, they're already the top social network pretty much everywhere around the world. So today, you can create a company, it can become global in no time. It's so much easier to do that today than, let's say, 10 years ago.
It's a pain also. I'm dealing with this all day long since we have our own site is speaking 8 languages.
Yeah.
Each time you make an update, you have to update everything. And even though there are, text files and so on you can use, how do you do it? So we have, 50 languages?
40 languages.
So how do you do it?
We have a fantastic guy who used to be a journalist. He manages a team of outside translators, and they translate everything. And then the users keep sending us feedback. Oh, maybe this wording should be a bit different, et cetera. So a combination of taking advice or input from the users, having an external outsourced team of translators, and frankly, having our internal customer care staff. So in Buenos Aires, where most of OLX is based, we have 105 people. And a lot of these are in the customer care department. So it's like, a native of any language who's on a 6-month or 1-year trip in Buenos Aires, and we're going to hire him to help us do customer care and spam control.
So you're like evil.
Why are we evil?
You're helping globalization. You're helping getting less jobs in Europe and in the US.
Well, first of all, Classified is a local business, right? So the people we're helping people in their countries improve their lives. In terms of where are the jobs done for OLX, most of the employees are in Buenos Aires. because that's where it's easy to find a lot of programmers who are really talented. I have a fantastic partner called Alec Oxenford. He was the CEO of Deremate, which is like an eBay of Latin America. And so we joined forces to do this. So
I'm obviously joking. It's amazing.
Yeah, great guy.
Right. And so, no, another advice you couldn't give to entrepreneurs?
I mean, as I said, just if you want to be an entrepreneur, I mean, just try it. I mean, put the site out there. You might get lucky, because if you look at the way we've done it, we're in 90 countries. Some countries were huge successes. Countries were total failures. I couldn't tell you why. It just happens. Why is Orchid big in Brazil? They didn't want to be big in Brazil. They opened everywhere. They got big in Brazil. So, go for it. Try something, and then try to bootstrap it and beg friends, family to, for a little bit of money to try to grow it.
Can they come to you with business plans in the room?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fabrice Grinda at gmail.com or something?
You can find most of my contacts on my blog, which is fabricegrinda.com, or you can email me. It's fabrice at
He's not even saying his name in French. Fabrice Grinda. It's Fabrice Grinda. Anyway, so we can. And so, how do you pick if you get? So send him right now your business plan. How do you pick? What's your criteria for getting? Investing. What do you invest? 100,000 euros.
$25,000 to $250,000 based on
$25,000 to $250,000. Okay.
So I have my own 9 personal business selection criteria. 9 business selection criteria, which I apply to my businesses, which I usually want and they're on my blog as well, but I can go through them if you're interested.
I want all of them.
Okay. 1, what's a $1 billion revenue opportunity? Number 2, I want
Wait. Is it $1 billion?
No, I want the idea to have a potential to generate $1 billion in revenues at some point in the future. So I want a big market. If it's not a big market, it's harder to get investors to be interested in the future. It's harder to get exits, et cetera. So you want a big market. Number 2, you want to understand your business model. So I want to know your gross and net margin. I want to know who you're going to charge, how much you're going to charge, and what your gross and net margin is.
So Twitter is out.
Well,
for now.
Yeah, so I would not have invested in Google probably because they didn't have a business model at the beginning. It would have been a mistake. But if you start a company, you have a 95% chance of failure in 5 years. If you don't have a business model, it's probably 99.9%. And there are a few counterexamples, and Twitter and Google are in that list. But I'd like to know how you're going to make money. Number 3, I don't want you to invest in companies where the capital requirements are too high. So the amount of seed money you need shouldn't be more than $500,000 or $1 million. The amount of Series A money more than $5 million to $15 million. If it's more than that, you're not going to find the capital. It probably fits better in a bigger company rather than be a startup. Number 4, it's good to be in a scalable business. It's just a lot easier to manage a $100 million revenue company with a couple hundred employees than having to open new stores, let's say, so startup's a great business. It's just not the type of business I'm interested in and I would look at to invest in. Number 5, it's going to be in growing businesses. So if a rising tide raises all boats. So if the business is growing, it's a lot easier to attract employees, investors, PR, et cetera. Number 6.
So growing.
Yeah, a growing market.
Yep.
Number 6, you want to be in a business where you can be one of the top 3 players in that business. And I don't mean globally, just meaning whatever market you're going after. Because if you look at the exits, most of the economics, so most of the highest valuations are going to be obtained by the number 1 or 2 player in the space. So you want to make sure you have a shot at being number 1, number 2, or number 3.
Otherwise, give up.
Well, go for something else.
Yeah, give up. So one of the top 3 companies. Interesting.
In that market. The market could be a niche. It could be just in one country. But I'm not saying globally.
For you, it's okay if you're not the leader, though.
It's better to be the leader. I mean, but I'm just saying, it's for my...
You don't give up.
Number 7. I don't want to be in business where there's a risk of disintermediation or margin compression by suppliers and or customers.
Give me an example, yeah.
So my last company was a bad example. It was a bad company for that reason. I sold Zingy because at the end, the top 3 carriers in the US accounted for 95% of the revenues. The top 4 music companies in the world accounted for 40% of the costs. That's a very dangerous business. You have, they can compress your margins, which they did, or they can go and talk directly to each other and bypass you, which they also did. And so it's a business. You don't want to be in businesses where you depend too much on your suppliers or your customers.
So, for example, Zynga, hundreds of millions of dollars, entirely depending on Facebook, kind of.
Not really. Zynga is different because the content, they create their own content. They're not licensing for anyone else. A lot of the marketing they're putting, I mean, Facebook just happens to be a distribution method. So I'd be less worried. That wouldn't worry me as much as other issues, you know, in the gaming space. Number 8, it's a long story. We don't have time for that. And number 8, I want to invest in companies where, you know, in my case, I know how to execute, or in the case of the companies I look at investing, they know how to execute in the space, which is why I'm not in biotech, for instance.
So good execution.
Yeah, and or a belief in their capability to execute. And number 9, you know, ideas I like, at least for the ones I'm doing. For the ones I'm investing in, because I don't have time, I'm not a professional investor, so I'm only going to spend, the way I look at angel investing is the following. It needs to be in the direct-to-consumer space. I'm going to meet the guy. Do I like the guy? Do I like the do I like the site? Do I like the deal? Do I believe in the business? Yes, no. So in one meeting, 1 hour, I'll say yes or no, basically.
Oh, so it's like speed dating.
I don't have time. So my job is running OLX. I invest for fun. It takes me a couple hours a month, maximum. And so I'm not going to be on the board. I don't want any involvement. It's like, I need to like you. I need to like the site. I need to like the deal. If that's the case, I'll do the deal.
Wow. So anyone wants to talk to Fabrice at the end? We'll take appointments for you. All right, well, very interesting, those 9. I hope someone took a note of that or blogged it, because these are very good 9 rules. I wish you the best, and I'm super, super impressed by your success, Fabrice.
Well, thank you, Loic, and I'm impressed by the show as well.
Thank you very much, Fabrice. And so how do we follow you? It's twitter.com/
I'm Fabrice Grinda on Twitter.
Fabrice Grinda, and on Facebook?
Fabrice Grinda on Facebook. And I accept friendships from every request from everyone, so you can friend me. And you can just look at my blog. It's fabricegrinda.com.
Thank you very much, Fabrice.
Thank you.
Another great entrepreneur.